Hello and welcome to the Gold Newsletter channel. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the EdJR mining guy over on Twitter. And together with Brien Lundin, I'm the host of the Gold Newsletter channel. And I'm really looking forward to introducing you to a new company. It's pretty unknown. Like, I barely have heard of it. And we just had the pleasure of chatting with the CEO for almost about an hour to get an introduction. I think it is going to be a doozy. So pay close attention. It is Kingsmen Resources, and I'm joined by President and CEO Scott Emerson here in a few short seconds, and I'm really looking forward to this because we're going to work out the value proposition. I'm really intrigued by what I've heard over the last 60 minutes, and I hope Scott can get it across. It's one of his first interviews, media interviews, and I'm honored that he's doing them with us, or doing it with us. Now, before I switch over to my guest, you all know the spiel. Kindly hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously and help us grow the channel and introduce some interesting equity stories. Now, without much further ado, Scott, it is great to see you, and thanks so much for making the time. Thanks so much for doing one of your first interviews with us here on the Gold Newsletter channel.
Thanks, Kai, for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm really looking forward to this. It's like we just chatted for an hour. We really made an effort to understand the story before we jump on here. And I think the value proposition is really interesting. And before we dive into the nitty gritty here, Scott, though, give us a quick 60-second overview, and then we're going to dive right in.
Sure, Kai. This was a project that I acquired in late 2022, just after COVID. It's the acquisition is of an old underground high-grade silver project that operated from 1944 to 1952 by ASARCO, which is now Grupo de Mexico. This project is interesting in the sense that while it's fairly new, it's not an old, early 1900s project like a lot of projects in Mexico. This was in languish, I guess, from 1952 up until the early 80s. And during that time, when ASARCO was there, they fell into property disputes with the 22 landholders that consisted of this project. And then it sat essentially idle or dormant, we'll say, where one individual went and tried to acquire each claim as it became available, or was able to talk to the landholders to put the package together. So fast forward to COVID happened. I'm not going to say a lot of good things came out of COVID, but this is one of them, in the sense that I was able to, as soon as travel restrictions lifted, spend time in Mexico. This project was 1 out of 10 that myself and my team visited and sampled. And during that process, we started to realize that not only was one individual holding the core of the claims, which was the old Las Coloradas silver mine, but the other claims surrounding it were controlled by major companies that were in the area that it explored. And again, the whole package was never assembled up until I put it together. It took about the better part of 9 months to do that.
Oh, fantastic. No, really good introduction. And of course, we're going to follow up on some of those things you've mentioned there, Scott. But to get everybody on the same level and level playing field here, capital structure is usually the second question I ask. Run us through that, because I find that one really interesting.
So the capital structure of the company is we have 19.5 million shares outstanding. Right now, I don't know where I was going with that, but we have 19.5 million shares outstanding. Our most recent private placement was done at 15 cents a share Canadian. There are no warrants or options in the company, nor was there any stock issued for the acquisition of the 100% ownership in the project, which I think is important. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, like it runs a bit through like insider ownership and major shareholders. Anybody we would recognize if they were to show up on the share registry?
The single largest shareholder is myself and my family. We have just a little over $330,000 Canadian into the company, and the other major shareholders are all individuals. I guess there's nobody outside of my family that has a bigger interest.
No, fair enough. And maybe last question there, like what's the cash position there, Scott?
Cash position is about 650,000 Canadian dollars currently.
Okay. Okay. No, fantastic. Like one thing, of course, that jumped out at me is no warrants and no options issued. And I do have to ask you, like, how are you planning to incentivize your team here, and how did you manage to keep it so tight?
So the team will be incentivized here probably in the next coming months through the stock options. But one of my big pet peeves, I guess, is that I want everybody to be on the level playing field, including the shareholders, so that we all have the opportunity to really see what's at the end of the drill bit and participate in that. What's the word I'm looking for? That capital appreciation, which comes from the drill bit.
No, it makes sense. No, I appreciate that, and I think every shareholder appreciates that. And you haven't issued yourself any what is it, 0.001 cent paper or
No,
dollar paper, right?
there's none of that in this company. Every share that is out there has been bought and paid for by the shareholders or myself.
Before we talk about exploration budgets and exploration plans, I think it's quite interesting to learn more about the history of the company and maybe some of the data you've acquired, because it's quite extensive. Run us a bit through that. Like, how confident are you in the data? Who'd you acquire it from, and what do you have to work with?
Yeah, so if we talk about the Las Coloradas mine itself, that was previously explored by a company called the Electrum Group, which is based in New York, who is significant in Mexico in the sense, and in the state of Chihuahua itself, in that they have an operating gold mine in the area, Gold, which some of your viewers may have heard of. They also have a facility in Chihuahua, just outside of Parral. They were active in the area. Coeur, another big French mining company, was active in the area. And as I said, when COVID hit, a lot of these companies pulled back their activities and either dropped their option, didn't make their option payment, and for all intents and purposes left the area. I was fortunate enough to come back just when travel restrictions opened up and to be able to renegotiate those contracts and acquire what they had left behind. And then I went individually to each of those companies and asked them to share their data with me, which I will say they were all very cooperative. And I was able to acquire, in today's terms, close to $3.5 million worth of data that they had done, mapping, sampling, geophysics. Some on the Northwest had aeromag done on them. So I was able to gather that, and we basically spent the time compiling that over the course of the last year.
No, like, how confident are you in the data that you acquire, and how
Well,
old is it? Like, how much of it can you use in like sort of modern exploration times?
yeah, all of the data is really from 2018 to present.
Oh, wow.
So it
Okay.
was 2018, 2019, 2020, like I say, up until COVID hit. So it's all very good data. Some of it we reanalyzed or re-synthesized, I guess is the word, to bring it up to speed. But no, we're very confident in the data, and the work that they had done is all first class.
Run us a bit through the acquisition terms of the project. Like, are there any outstanding royalties? Anything you had to give up? Like, what kind of kidneys did you have to leave behind? Or,
Yeah. So the terms of the agreement is really quite simple. I have a 7-year option to acquire 100%. The first 5 years are what we would call front-end loaded small payments. And when I say that, we're starting at $25,000 for the first year, $50,000 in the second year. The third year, I think, goes to 75, 100, 125, and then the last 2 years are what we would say are balloon payments of $500,000 US. We're all talking US dollars for a total of 2.15 million US dollars. So our thinking, or my thinking through that process, is we've been a year and a half. We have drill ready targets. We are ready to drill. We'll know what's there within the next 12 to 18 months.
okay, gotcha. There's like, maybe to scale back and understand like your process a little bit. Like, what attracted you to it? Like, why are you so excited about it? Why did you go through all this effort of putting it together, spending your own capital on it? Like, why are you excited?
I think what was attractive to me, not knowing initially when we went there and sampled, is that there were other major companies in the surrounding blocks and claims that we were able to acquire that had done a tremendous amount of work and never drilled. They got to the point of never drilling, and being able to capture that data for ourselves and for our shareholders was what attracted me to it, because there's a lot of work put in here, and we were given a lot of good information. I guess I'm repeating myself, but that's why, Kai.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so confident in it. It had never been drilled along strike. It's never been drilled below the water table. We have the old Asarco mining records, the cross sections, so we can see the mineralization that's been taken out and the mineralization that was left when they got into a dispute. So all of that data is to our benefit.
Now, I was going to just ask you that, because you also did some sampling yourself and you put out some results out. Like, what did you learn from your own sampling?
So really, that sampling was a confirmation of sampling that had previously been done, and then we've expanded on that. So what that really demonstrated to us is that the vein system that we know exists, that it can be expanded on surface, and we were able to successfully sample our own for ourselves that additional work, because they had never gone outside of that zone.
Okay. No, fantastic. That really interesting. Like, run me a bit through the mining data that you got from Asarco as well. Like, what were some of the grades? Because I've seen some of your results were about 450 grams per ton. Is that of silver? Is that correct?
Yes, 450 up to, I think our highest sample was 773 grams that we identified. So well over a kilo. Some have been under a kilo. But there's been nothing really that's been disappointing so far in this program in the last, I think that's important for your viewers to understand. This was all put together in the last 2 years. It's not like we've been here for 7 years doing this. A lot of people have done work prior to us, but what we've published and put out there in the public domain has been done in the last 2 years, which, if I was to try to replicate this is probably, like I say, 5 years of work.
Yeah. Brings me a bit to like sort of the next steps as well. Like, based on all the data you have, like, what are some of the next steps for you? Like, what does the exploration program look like?
So as I mentioned to you, we have drill ready targets right now. That is going to be our plan here between now and the end of the year, is we'd like to put a drill rig on there, or 2 drill rigs on there. Really what's left to do is, I think I mentioned when we previously talked earlier, we would like to run a deep penetrating ground mag, just for continued confirmation of the targets that we have chosen, if it provides us any more valuable data to know that we are drilling our best targets. So it's as simple as that, Kai. It's not complicated. Really, from a mining standpoint, we're ready to go. And again, your viewers can look back at the news that we've published over the course of the last year and a half to see how we've built this.
Scott, we do have to address the elephant in the room, of course, and that's capital, access to capital and financing. Like, how do you plan to finance the program?
So right now, our plan is to finance in the fall of this year. I think we all know we've got the summer doldrums upon us, even though we've got $30 silver and $2,500 gold. The market really comes back to work late September, early October, November. And that's when we'll be out there telling our story and looking at those capital markets to get financed. Again, we're not looking for a large amount of capital for dilution to the company. Our plan right now is to do a raise of probably $2.5 million Canadian.
No, fair enough. Can we break the drill program down a little bit? Like, I think you have a clear plan. Like, if I'm fishing for the low-hanging fruit here, what are you going to target first, and what do you plan to get out of it?
I think we're going to plan to drill a long strike and a depth to what we know exists there, to the old mine, because that's going to give us confirmation that this mineralization carries further than what ASARCO had previously mined out of the area. That's going to be our first target. And then we've got which we just recently announced here in the last month, we've got two cross-cutting veins, I guess, northwest and northeast. That's a big interest to us because we've not seen that on the project previously in all our work that we've done. So that is a definite drill target or drill targets there. And again, that's just going to give us confirmation of continued mineralization.
No, fair enough. That's exactly what we want to see. Higher grade vein mineralization. That's exactly what we're going for. Scott, one last topic we have to tackle here is, of course, your relationship with the Electrum Group. You mentioned that to me as well, and you've added Mark Pryor to the team recently. He's the director, or he works with the Electrum Group out of New York. Run us a bit through that relationship and what kind of doors does that open for you?
So for us, because Electrum has been very active in the state of Chihuahua, and they have an operating mine in Chihuahua, Mark really brings a depth of information, I guess you can call it, with him. He's a great addition. He's physically there in Parral, which is the closest community to our project. And he has worked there for the past 7 years. He's got relationships that go very deep in the community and with the service providers. And he's knowledgeable about the geology in the area. This is really his backyard, so to speak. So that was a big coup having Mark join us. And he's excited about the opportunity and potential discovery. And that said, Kai, we've also got, our VP of exploration, Kieran Downs, which comes from a background of Cameco on the gold side, very established. Again, these are hands-on guys. They're not people that sit behind the desk and think they're going to have a discovery looking at a bunch of pretty pictures, so to speak, on a computer screen. They're physically in the field, boots on the ground. As myself is, my entire board has been in the field, on the ground, to see what I'm so excited about, what I think the opportunity is that is before us. So, if we get a good capital market, which I think we'll get in the fall because people will start to pay attention to commodity prices, we'll be drilling before you know it.
Like one thing we need to talk about before that, there's one step before the drilling, and that's permitting. And what does the permitting situation look like for you right now?
So I'm going to say that when we made this acquisition, because of the data that we had acquired and we continue to get from different sources, we had made application for our drill permit. So we are fully permitted to do a drill program on this site.
Okay.
So that legwork has already been done. We're not having to wait for it or, go through the steps and say, oh, we just applied for our drill permit. We have our drill permit. We've done an environmental report. It's been filed. We're ready to go.
And in Mexico, run us through it. Like, you're permitted for X amount of drill holes, drill pads, like disturbance. What does that look like in Mexico?
Yeah, so in Mexico, they've actually got a really simple process to do that. So you basically prepare your drill hole locations along with your map, show them the drainage, how many platforms that you want to build, how many holes will be drilled off that platform. So it's just a reporting process. And yes, it did take us 7 weeks to do because it was done independently. We couldn't do it internally for us, and then it was submitted. So again, Kai, the process is very simple. Yeah.
No, fantastic. I think it was really all encompassing. I think we really worked out the value proposition here for Kingsmen Resources. But run us a bit through the next steps now. Like, what can we expect next from the company?
I think what you're going to expect next is we do have a field in the field right now. We continue to have people in the field, and if you look, we continuously are putting out news from our sampling and mapping program. That's going to conclude here probably late September. So your audience can be expecting news in that regard, from sampling and whatnot. And then it's really a question of a financing and drilling.
Sounds like every exploration story.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like, well, except for we have a permit, we have our known drill hole locations.
No, it's like I was referring to the financing parts. Like, well, that's typical. That's where my mind was going. Like, well, it's exploration. Of course, you have to raise financing.
Yeah,
like, it's normal. You got to spend money to make money. So,
you do. But in that regard, Kai, again, 19.5 million shares outstanding. There's no options. There's no warrants. So there's really no overhang. The individuals that are in the deal, so to speak, we'll call it the deal, are in it because they want to see what's at the end of the drill bit, as do I.
Same here. After chatting with you for about an hour and a half now, I'm Scott. I'm excited. I do want to hear more. I do want to see more, and definitely want to see some of that vein material come out in the drill core. So I do want to say that. Scott, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for introducing Kingsmen Resources here to us. Really appreciate it. Hope to get to catch up with you again very, very soon. And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this conversation here with Scott Emerson of Kingsmen Resources. If you did, please leave a like, leave a comment. Let us know how we did. Did we ask the right questions? Did you take something away from this? Again, this is not investment advice or anything of that sort. It was really just information for us. Like, we like listening to these stories. We like learning more about new companies that we haven't interviewed in the past. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and of course, we'll be back with lots more. Thank you so much.